on YouTube. So I'm going to be answering your astrology questions, metaphysical questions, and questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. We'll give everyone a few minutes to enter the room. Also, if you guys want your own natal chart reading or progress natal chart reading, the information for all of that is going to be in the description box below. It's going to be on my website underneath the readings tab. An email window should pop up after you guys select your reading. You guys can send me an email and we'll go from there. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all the people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, questions about your natal charts, metaphysical questions. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Hello, how are you doing? I'm answering astrology questions and questions about your natal charts. So if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Astrology about 4 years now. Welcome to all the people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts, or whatever you guys would like to talk about today. So feel free to comment below. Hey Marie, how are you doing? I'm answering astrology questions, questions about your natal charts. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. I hope all is well with you as well. Oh, good. I'm glad that that video resonated. Hey, welcome everyone. Yes, I am on a little bit earlier, so hoping to catch some people that usually don't catch the usual lives. Cancer Sun, Scorpio Moon person. This individual is definitely going to be very, very sensitive, energetically sensitive. You're going to be picking up on a lot of feelings, on a lot of emotions, a lot of vibes. You might find yourself a lot of the time saying things like, I feel like that's a bad person. I feel like that's a good idea. I don't feel like that's a good idea. That's Cancer Sun. Scorpio Moon, and then there's this whole situation going on with the mother, for sure, with Cancer Sun, Scorpio Moon. Very huge attachment to the mother. There could even be like an abandonment wound connected to the mother and the home with the Cancer Sun as well. Sometimes Cancer Sun individuals, the father could have been more feminine energy leaning, so like maybe more lethargic or just like not as present with a Cancer Sun, or maybe like alcoholism or something of the sort with the Cancer Sun. Obviously, we'd have to look at the rest of the natal chart, but that's kind of like the idea with those two energies there. Hey everyone, welcome to everyone joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, and questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. I will be going in order. You said your second house ruler is Saturn in the 6th house in Taurus. What kind of job does that relate to? So for job, you want to look at everything. You want to look at the combination of houses. You want to look at your second house ruler, but also you can look at your second house overall. You can also look at your midheaven. But with just that information right there, you could be interested in a field where it's like health, healing, and being of service. The 6th house could be this. It could be like, because it's in Taurus, it could be like a doctor, something a little bit more grounded. It's all about money, getting the gains, being of service in this way, helping people. It could even be like, let's say like a massage therapist, for example, with that 6th house in there. How to counteract being a Cancer rising and a Libra sun, being too accommodating and kind. Yes, that is definitely very accommodating and kind with that energy. And there, basically, you're gonna have to work on boundaries with these types of energies. Working on boundaries, you know, knowing what you like, what are your wants, likes, needs, and desires, and when other people are overstepping those. So it's this, because sometimes even Cancerian energy, like you can feel into another person, you can feel into another person's needs, but it's like, not a lot of people are like that. Do you know what I mean? So just because you can see, like, let's say there's a wound within someone, or like that person is like, you know, feeling some type of way, you might want to fill that void for them, you know, but if it's to your detriment, then it's to your detriment. You know what I mean? But if it's not, then it's not. So it depends. Hey, everyone. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Also, if you guys would like your own natal chart reading or progress natal chart reading, the information for all of that is in the description box below on my website. You go on my website, you select the reading you guys want, an email window should pop up, and you guys can send me an email and we'll go from there. You're welcome. You said, what about a Capricorn sun, Cancer moon person? This person's going to be a little bit more grounded, but the Cancer moon is always sensitive. That's the thing. Like Cancer moon is always sensitive energetically. Like out of all the moon signs, Cancer moon is the most abandoned moon sign, okay? It's the most abandoned sign overall, but when it's in the moon sign, it feels especially abandoned. Usually it's emotional abandonment, so they might be a little bit closed off, especially with the Capricorn sun when you first meet them. But underneath all of that, there's kind of like the softness to this person, and they're definitely going to be clairsentient. They're going to be someone who is very feeling based as well. Cancer moon, home is going to be really important to them, but sometimes to the point of like not wanting to move on from the home, because it's like Cancer moon people carry like orphan energy within them is really what that is. So it's either past lives where like they didn't have a family, or like this lifetime they don't have a family. So sometimes they're always looking for that. So you'll see that Cancer people are like very nurturing of everyone around them, but that's because they want to be nurtured is really what that is. So anytime we're doing something, like you'll see if anyone's doing something like to an excess amount, it's because they want that done to themselves. Usually we're trying to train people how to treat us, basically. So Cancer moon people, or just Cancerian energy in general, is always like tending to everyone. And also another reason for this is for them to like distract themselves from like their own inner emotional turmoil. So that's what's going on with them. They basically have to resolve like emotional abandonment, emotional neglect. They have to resolve anything to do with like not feeling, you know, like heard, like their emotions not feeling heard, because they have a lot of emotions, they have a lot of feelings, basically Cancer moon. Hey everyone, how are you guys doing? What would you like to know about Leo? You said you have your vertex in the 8th house. Can you tell me what sign is in there as well, please? You said you have Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn conjunct in the 10th house. Can I elaborate, please? Yes, so that's hustling and usually success in the later half of your life, okay? So the second half of your life with that 10th house, especially because it's Saturn in there as well. Saturn is going to make you more of a hard worker and basically like getting those gains. You know, the eyes are on the prize, getting the money, focusing on like the higher heights, the higher echelons of society. Venus and Saturn conjunct usually wants serious long-term relationships is really what that is. So that's that. Usually you tend to become very well known in a niche. So like, let's say, you know, you wanted to be a lawyer, or like you're an engineer. It depends on the rest of the energies in your natal chart. But let's say it's something like this. In the second half of your life, you kind of get to that peak. You know what I mean? Because the 10th house, you guys can kind of look at it as like you're climbing to the house. Now, because it's at the top of your chart in the Placidus tropical system. Now, if you're not getting there, you want to look at the 4th house, okay, your IC. What happened in the home, because this energy is now pulling at you, right? So whatever you have going on and like whatever sign is in your 4th house is going to give you more information as to what could be pulling you and holding you back in terms of the 10th house public life career. Hey, yeah, welcome. I know I came on live a little sooner just to switch it up, just to get some people in here that usually don't catch the live. So I'm glad that a lot of you guys are catching the lives that haven't been here before. Bridget, you said Aries sun, Pisces rising, Cancer moon. Oh, another Cancer moon. Saturn and Aquarius 12th house. You said you feel blessed and cursed. Why is that? Hey, Edward, how are you doing? You said, how are we doing? Last full moon took full effects. Yeah, something intense really happened around the full moon and solstice. I don't know if it's like, again, these days, a lot of people are connecting their energy to like the astrological events. So it could be that. It could just be like the collective just connecting their energy to it. But yeah, I definitely felt really intense. Very much like tired energy, but like the tiredness is coming from like the higher vibrational energy. I hope that makes sense. So it's like, okay, when you're in the psychic realms and you're in the metaphysical realms, you're moving faster, okay? Because you're like out of body and it's higher up there. So it's like when you come back into your body, you feel more tired, especially when you're doing psychic work too, because it's like the body is very dense compared to how fast you're moving in those psychic realms, okay? So it could be this, like the higher vibrations could have been coming through, and just because of that, like there could be just like this tiredness that's happening as well. Hey everyone, yes, welcome. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. You said 62 and just now demanding boundaries. Good. Yeah, I feel like, so there's like themes within the collective. So it's like, because this is a theme within the collective, like learning about boundaries and especially like narcissism and just like people crossing the boundaries, like everyone right now is learning about that, right? So some people could be 20 learning about that right now. It's just because it's like, it's a shadow that's being brought to the surface. So it's good that you're learning about it. You said your sun is a Cancer moon and your Pisces moon. Oh, that's nice. So it's trining. That's very nice. So it's like you'll understand the Cancer moon nature. Like he'll definitely need a lot of attention as a Cancer moon. Like a lot of emotional attention is really what that is. All of the water signs do. They need like that depth. how do you view the South Node? Like, how do I view the South Node, or how does anybody view the South Node? So the way that I see the South Node is like, yes, it's your past life. It's something that maybe you completed in a past life or mastered. But these days, like, that's like the traditional like textbook version of it, right? It's something that you completed and mastered in a past life. You have the tendency to fall toward the South Node because it's familiar to you, but you want to focus on the North Node, okay? But the whole thing here is, the way that I see it these days is like, if you would have mastered it, you wouldn't be reincarnating down here again. That's how I see it. So I look at it as like, you know, maybe you did master it, maybe you received a certain amount of knowledge, but you didn't get to fully apply it. So you want to look at the South Node and see how can you apply the South Node in the North Node type of way. That's how I see North Node, South Node. You said lots of attention. Yes, absolutely. Yes, especially from like the mother with the Cancer moon. Hey everyone, welcome. You said, why are you as a Plutonian person so attracted to other Plutonian men? Well, a few things I think are taking place there. Like, when you're a Plutonian person, you need the depth, right? So that's what like a Plutonian individual is going to offer you. Sometimes it's going to be like, if you've healed, you see like a past version of yourself within that person as well. So you kind of probably feel like you can kind of help that person get to where you're at. Like, there's that aspect of it as well. But then there's just like the intensity of it overall. Like, it can just be intense also and like very toxic if it's a Plutonian dynamic and if there's like unresolved things on both sides. So yes, it can go in any of these realms. It depends how evolved and developed both of the individuals are. But overall, like as a Plutonian person, like, yeah, you will be attracted to Plutonian people or Plutonian dynamics because you seek that depth. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what Pluto is. It's all about the depths of life, the intensity, and these types of things. Now it's kind of like, what do you deem to be intense? Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes it could be like a toxic type of intensity as well, you know? So it's this, but it's like, you'll see, like, even if you have like scorpionic energy anywhere in your natal chart, even within your friendships, like, you can have surface level friendships, you know what I mean? That are like people that you just like, you know, hang out with for certain things. But then if you want like the depths, you'll probably see that those people either have like Pluto aspects and you're also a Pluto aspected person, or they have Scorpio placements. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, it's like a resonance energetically is really, really what that is. Hey everyone, welcome to the chat. I'm just going back up. You said, what is your midheaven? So what does it mean if your midheaven is in his 12th house? You said, could that mean obsession even to stalking? Yes, it could. It could also mean like this individual could really, really like the way you present yourself as well to the world. If it's this as well, because it's like midheaven is like how we present ourselves to the world, or maybe even what you do for work could be something that this individual is like interested in as well. It could be this as well. And then you said, and would you be aware of it as the midheaven? There's probably other aspects that are taking place in there as well. Uranus is really interesting energetically for the person asking about an example of an extreme Uranus transit, because like, just like anything, there's a light side and there's a shadow side to it. So Uranus can be really, really good for change. It can be really, really good for like rebellion, you know, basically like challenging the status quo and these types of things. But sometimes Uranus rebels just to rebel. Do you know what I mean? Where it's like, you know, let's say like you said to one of your friends or family members, whoever, and you're like, oh, I want to do this. Like, I want to go to this place. And now because there's this expectation of you, you might find yourself like not wanting to do it anymore because you're like rebelling. You can also rebel against yourself. So that's that Uranus energy. It's sudden unexpected change. So yes, it's going to bring through change when you're going through a Uranus transit. It's going to bring through challenging again, like the status quo or just like traditions or rebelling against traditions. So that's kind of like the overall idea. Yes, 1 second. I'll get to you guys at the bottom. I'm just going in order. What's the difference between rising and descendant sign? You said, for example, a Taurus rising is always seen as calm and collected, but is that only around people you're not close with? You said rising and descendant. Okay, so rising is how you look, okay? It is how you present yourself to the world, and it is also the direction you're heading in this lifetime. Your descendant is your 7th house. So your descendant are the people that you attract, okay, or are attracted to, like what their vibe is like. So if you're a Taurus rising, your descendant is going to be in Scorpio, okay? So your 7th house is Scorpio. So you might take on some even like Scorpio Venus types of traits, right? Because that's the undertone energy there when you have Scorpio in the 7th house. So you could be possessive, you could have like intense relationships when you have the Scorpio 7th house, or these people can be like this towards you. Now the 7th house can also tell us about our shadows, and it can mirror back to us aspects of ourselves that we don't necessarily see. Okay, so that's what the descendant is all about. So the rising is how you present yourself to the world, okay, is really what that is. The descendant is like, again, the people in your life, but also aspects of yourself that you might not necessarily see. Okay, that's what the descendant sign is all about. It's your 7th house. So it's like, it's the people and like their vibe, and because it's energy, it can be like you're like this in your relationships, or these people are like this toward you, because it's just like, it's an energy. So you can go either way. You said you date a guy that hides his emotions so much with his Scorpio moon, but Leo rising and Aquarius Mercury. Yeah, that's intense. Scorpio energy is really interesting because it is definitely, especially in the moon sign, it's always hiding, right? So you'd have to explore and see, because I'm trying to see, I think you were the person who was the Plutonian person. Because with this energy, like maybe there's something that you got used to in your childhood where you were like trying to always like figure out the emotions or like the vibe of like one or both of the parents. So it's like, it could be a pattern for you with this person now where you're always trying to figure out like what their emotion is, or what is their like emotional like point. Because that's the thing with Scorpio moon, you'll never know what's going on within a Scorpio moon, is really what that is. I mean, they might tell you, but it's difficult because you said it's a man. So it depends, how old is this person and how comfortable are they with their feminine energy? Because it's like, if it's a cis het man, usually they tend to struggle a little bit more with that feminine energy within. So he might be even more closed off, or like have even like more of trust issues, for example, or just like, yeah, not really expose what's going on in the emotional world, but it's like deep, okay? Like the Scorpio moon is like, they feel everything, is really what that is. They might just not talk about it. Or sometimes Scorpio moons can also go into emotional unavailability because they feel too much. Do you know what I mean? So they just like shut it off. So you said it's totally fun in the new job. Oh, awesome, you got a new job. Observing your colleagues and their energies. Besides that, a lot happened for you and your parents. Oh, was it good? Was it bad? You said, yes, loss of attention. Pluto in the 8th house person, that's a lot of change and transformation throughout your life. So Pluto in your chart, the sign is gonna be the overall generation. The house always affects you more for the generational planets. So it's the area that you may have felt powerless in when you were a child, and then later on you try to claim or like reclaim your power in that area. So you try to control that area. The 8th house is intense because this is like sex, death, rebirth, joint finances, taxes, and the occult. So it's anything to do in this realm, you're probably trying to control this. So even like, let's say like being emotionally vulnerable and open, you might struggle with that, for example, or even like money and like other people's money and resources, for example, could be something that like you try to control, or they try to control for you, or maybe you felt powerless in that area. That's the whole thing with like people. It's so interesting. I was thinking about this today in general about like controlling people. And it's interesting because it's like, you know, sometimes they say like controlling people like don't want to feel powerless in a situation, but I find it interesting because like people who become extremely controlling, and I guess you can relate this to Scorpionic energy in the shadow, is like they become like this because they spent a lot of time when they were younger feeling powerless, which is really interesting. So it's like when they get older, they become controlling because they don't want to feel powerless again. They're trying to avoid that emotion, is really what that is. So I'm just going back up. Hey Sherry, how are you doing? I'm just answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, and questions about your natal charts. So your vertex is in the 8th house in Gemini. Okay, so vertex, you guys can look at it as the house. Okay, the house is the person or people you experience some sort of fated event through. I always look at vertex as like a fated event that puts you on your path, okay, or the path that you're meant to be on in this lifetime. So the house is the person or people you experience the event through. The sign is the vibe of the event, okay? So the 8th house could be, let's say, an intimate partner. It could be a psychologist. It could be a therapist. It could be, let's say, a financial advisor, for example. So let's say, with Gemini in there, let's say you always wanted to write a book, okay? Because it's like the written or the spoken word. So like, let's say you always wanted to write a book, but you didn't have the time because you always had to work. So maybe you go to the bank and the financial advisor approves you for a bank loan now, where it's like you're now gonna have the money and the funds to fund your book, for example, or like the free time for you to write that book. There you go, puts you on your path. So that's the overall vibe Another thing is it's a fated event. So it's like, you know, it's a more recent discovery in astrology, and it's like the event could have already happened. You know what I mean? So I always say to people, like, take it with a grain of salt, because like this event could have happened already. Don't be like sitting in your room and be like, oh my gosh, what is the fated event going to be, kind of thing, you know? So that's Vertex. Oh, thank you. You said I described Scorpio energy so well. Absolutely. I am a Scorpio stellium. I have a bunch of Scorpio videos on my YouTube channel. I have a Scorpio/A house playlist, okay, if you guys want to learn more. And, okay, you guys can learn more and see if you guys are Plutonian yourselves, if you guys have Pluto aspects taking place in your natal charts as well. Okay, but that's going to make you Plutonian, not necessarily Scorpionic, okay? But this is the overall idea. So let's see what else you guys are saying in here. You said, can someone describe, or can I describe someone with Sun, Moon, Venus, and Aquarius in the A house? Well, that's interesting, because this person is going to be detached, but then they're also going to be a little bit more on the controlling side aspect of things. So there's that, okay? It's in the A house, so they're definitely going to be a medium. They're going to have mediumship abilities. And like the Aquarius energy is going to want to be detached, but it's in the A house. So this person might have to work through, let's say, like being very, very like fixed, for example, is kind of what I'm getting also for this individual. Like very fixed in their ways, or like stubborn, or like not budging, like shadowy types of things. You can kind of look at it as even like shadows of Aquarius, for example. Sometimes Aquarius rebels just to rebel, for example, as well. But the A house in there definitely gives it more of that like scorpionic undertone, for example. So it's like this person might be possessive, they might be jealous, they might be manipulative when they're in the shadow, they might be controlling, all these things, okay, that have to be integrated and transmuted, basically for them to get to that freedom energy that Aquarius does seek. You said you already imagine how your job will be a challenge, your view and believe around the world. Once ninth house Uranus hits and any incoming transits on the area. Besides that, new job really triggers natal Uranus. Okay. And then you said, how would, I already answered that one. Okay, let's see. You guys said Venus and Scorpio and descendant and Scorpio descendant compatibility. I mean, you guys are the same. So there's that, okay? Venus and Scorpio descendant. This person's 7th house is in Scorpio, so you guys probably have, now you're gonna have to look at their Venus too. Obviously, you have to look at the aspects. You have to look at all of that, but if we're just looking at those two energies, it's very similar. So it's like there could be a lot of like, it would be interesting to see how these two people get together, because usually when you put two Scorpionic energies together, they're both kind of like watching each other. Do you know what I mean? Like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? So the beginning could be a lot of this like ping pong until they actually get together. Do you know what I mean? And there could be a lot of testing on both sides, and then maybe both people are gonna get that the other person is testing them, and then it's this, okay? But it's like, if you get past that, it could be a very deep dynamic. If it's in the divine version, it could be very like intense energetically between the two people in the positive sense, but it could also be very intense in the shadow sense, where it's like both people are trying to hold on to the other person. I can see one of those dynamics like lasting an extended period of time if you kind of get over the intensity aspect of things, because both people want, you know, the other to be loyal and to be there and to be around, okay? And it's fixed, right? So that's that. So it's this. You said your Uranus in the 8th made necessary struggle and huge up and down money-wise. I can see that, because it's sudden unexpected change when it came to money. Something interesting that came through psychically today or yesterday was Uranus in the 8th house could be someone also that rebels against their intimate partners or their spouse. So it's this. You said, well, you were excited to catch me live. Yay, I'm glad that you were here. You said, perfect, yes, send me an email, absolutely. And then you said, can I touch on South Node, Aquarius 12th house? So South Node, Aquarius 12th house, your North Node would be in Leo, and it would be in the 6th house. So in a past life, maybe you thought of something like very futuristic or like an invention or something of that sort. You weren't able to express it, okay, probably. So you come through in this lifetime to maybe express it in a more grounded way because of the 6th house, or like a more like physical creative way where it's like you're actually like expressing it, like you're explaining it. For example, so that's how you guys can look at North Node, South Node. It's like something that you mastered in a past life, but maybe you didn't get to fully complete it. That's how I see it, because if you completed it, you wouldn't be reincarnating back down here. That's how I see it, okay? So it's like you mastered it, maybe, yes, but you didn't get to express it in one way, shape, or form, so you come through to express it in the North Node type of way. Hey, hello, dear friends. Oh, thank you. I'm going to look that person up. Oh my gosh, I didn't have the sound. Okay, is it back now? You guys are so funny in the chat. Thank you. What was the last thing I was talking about before the sound disappeared? Do any of you guys know? No, I don't know why. I use two different phones, and every time I'm on this one, I don't know what I do to press the sound to go off. But on the other one, it doesn't happen. Okay, whatever, it doesn't matter. Let me just go back up and see where I was, because I was asking you guys if you guys know. Oh my God, it was 3 minutes? That's hilarious. Okay, so I'm not gonna answer that. Okay, it was a narcissistic thing. Okay. So maybe you guys weren't meant to hear what I was saying about that. So we're just going to skip over that question then. I'm going to go to the next one. Let's see. In a nutshell, okay, to do like the too long didn't read version of the troubling level of narcissism, I was saying it depends on the natal chart of the person. And it depends how the person has developed is basically what I was saying, okay? And like a little bit more of a descriptive explanation. But that's what I was saying, okay? So you can't say it's this sign or that sign. It just depends on the individual, and just like, you know, you can have two people who have very similar energies in their chart, but maybe one of them grew up in an environment that like nurtured them. Do you know what I mean? Because narcissism, I find narcissism basically comes from you being super unhealed and not having a lot of needs met and not knowing your emotions and being like disconnected from the body, and severe trauma too is really, really what that is. Because I was also saying that like a lot of the time you'll see narcissists are very intuitive, you know, but in the shadow, okay? Because they're picking up on people's wounds, they're picking up on people's like soft spots, and they're using those things, they're hooking into those things to control those people. So they're using intuition, but in the shadow. Do you know what I mean? So it's this. So yes, that was in a nutshell what I was saying. Thank you guys for staying for those 3 minutes while I was on mute. Okay, I'm just going back up. Oh my gosh, thanks for the likes, you guys. You said, what would I say, or would I say that North Node conjunct Juno could mean obsession with marriage? You have that in Capricorn. I'd have to see your whole chart to see what's rooting that obsession. Because North Node conjunct Juno, something that I heard recently from someone, what I found really interesting and actually liked, they were basically saying that like Juno, because it's an asteroid, it's not actually strong enough to tell us about marriage. So I found that really, really interesting because I can see the logic. So yes, it could be something else that you have going on in your natal chart, the obsession, okay? It could even be something to do with like Pluto's aspecting or something, like something going on. I'd have to look at your whole chart to see what's going on in there. Sherry, you said you're a Libra rising with Cancer, midheaven, moon in Virgo in the 12th house, whole signs. You were told by an astrologer friend that you'd perform best working in healthcare, but you'd rather focus on being an artist. Libra rising, and then you said Cancer, midheaven, and then you said Virgo, 12th house, whole signs. I mean, you can totally be an artist with that. I'd have to look at the rest of the energies in your natal charts, but it's like if you're being pulled in a direction to do something, then you're being pulled for a reason. Do you know what I mean? Another thing too that I've been saying to people like in my day-to-day life, what we've been talking about lately, is just like sometimes you can be clearing like certain past lives within your lifetime. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes for a certain period of time, you would be doing, let's say, a certain job, or just like maybe living in a certain area because you're clearing a certain past life for that period of time, and then you move on to the next thing. You know what I mean? So to get more insight, I'd have to look at your whole natal chart. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. Oh, no way. Yes, I will definitely look up that actress. Thank you so much. Oh, you're welcome for the entities video. Good. Yes, I had a few different videos where I was talking about entities like on separate occasions. And then one of you guys asked to just like put it all in one video, and I was like, sure. So I made a whole video for you guys so you guys can know how entities attach. And it's so interesting because it's like sometimes you talk about something and it's like you start hearing everyone talking about it at the same time. So I was like, okay, good. Like people are starting to become aware of how these things operate. You said you're very confused, you're new to this, your boyfriend is a Libra, you're an Aquarius, what do you need to know? I mean, in synastry, there's so much going on. Just like the sun sign is not really gonna say much. Do you know what I mean? Because the sun is your ego, it's who you think you are. Some people say it's who you grow into being. So it's like Aquarius, Libra, like it's trine, it's nice. You know, I can see why you guys like get along for that reason, but there's so many other things going on in a natal chart, so it's hard to say with just like that information. You said you have 0 5th house placements, 0 10th house placements, and Saturn and Pisces in the 6th. You're not passionate about healthcare, but you do love art. Yeah, you know, this is the thing. It could be something else. You know what I mean? It could be another aspect that's taking place, or it could even be a transit that's maybe pulling you in that direction right now. But it's this, like, if you're being pulled to do it, I just say do it. You know what I mean? Because that's your intuition. Like, your intuitive muscle is never going to lead you astray. So it's like, if there's something that you want to do, because like when you're doing it, you're going to love what you're doing, and then it's going to put you in the love frequency, you know? And then everything comes from that, from you being in the love frequency. So it's this. You said, can you feel the energy of composite when you get to know another, or only in the relationship itself later? Usually composite is later. Like, it's something that like happens over time. Let's see. You have Jupiter conjunct Pluto, conjunct Juno in the 2nd house. What is the effect of Juno conjuncting your Pluto? You said, could the midheaven also stand for social media expression? Yes, absolutely. I have a video on that. I have a video on here. It's under my miscellaneous playlist, where I was basically saying how you present yourself on social media, or how you, yeah, it's how you present yourself on social media, because the midheaven is how you want the public to perceive you. So sometimes you can figure out someone's midheaven by how they post on social media, is really what that is. You know, those people who are like having one account, deleting it, uploading another one, you know, deleting that one, having 50 different accounts, like that's usually Scorpio midheaven, okay? That's kind of like the Scorpio midheaven vibe. If it's someone who's like showing off, you know, I'm here, it could be Leo, okay? Or if it's someone that's showing off like luxurious vacation, and I'm here and I'm there and I bought this car in this house, Taurus midheaven, okay? So you can tell a lot about a person. If it's someone that's like, I won this item and this prize and this race and ran this marathon, probably an Aries midheaven, okay? So you can tell a lot by someone how they're about someone by how they're posting on social media. And it's like, even if the account is private, it'll still tell you about them. You know what I mean? Because it's still the public life. It's the image we want to portray out there to the world. So definitely check that video out, you guys, if you're interested in learning more about how you guys present yourselves on social media. Oh, this is an interesting question. You said, how to know intercaste love marriage in the chart. You can look at the ruler, okay, you can look at the ruler of Jupiter. Sometimes Jupiter in the 9th house, or the ruler of that is going to tell you if it's in the 9th house, okay, that you're going to marry outside of your culture or into a different religion. It could be this, okay? That's one of the things. I'm sure there's other things. I'd have to look at your whole chart to see what else is going on in there, but that could be one of the things. He said, can Mars square Pluto 1 degree composite work in a relationship? That could be a very intense relationship. It could be super sexually attractive, yes, but it could also be very violent. I will say that much. So it depends. Maybe there's other placements that are taking place to neutralize the energy, okay? But it's a lot of ego, okay, when you have Mars square Pluto. It's intense. It really, really is. But again, depends how evolved the two people are. Maybe if you have the awareness of this, you guys can work with the energies, but usually like very sexually like charged, the dynamic, but also it can be very intense, okay? And it can also be a lot of ego, like power struggles, especially like the Pluto person, okay? Kind of pulling that out of the Mars person. Like it could even be like, for example, the Pluto person can be the type of person that like, you know, wants to make the other person jealous to see that the person cares. Do you know what I mean? So they can like poke at like certain, you know, like soft spots within the other person, and then it can turn into a whole argument. And then the Pluto person's like, okay, good. Like I got the argument, which means that the person cares about me now. Do you know what I mean? But that's like shadow toxic types of behavior. So thoughts on human design. It's something that I've never really gotten into. I don't know. Sometimes when I learn about certain things and then I try to like look at it and it puts me into cognitive dissonance, it's just like there's something there that's not vibing, and I just kind of like leave it. So it's this. Thank you. I'm so glad that you guys like the videos. Oh, interesting. You guys want predictions. Yes, I used to do predictions back in the day. I kind of stopped because here's the thing, the way that I see it, there's a few reasons, okay? So a lot of people have future anxiety, which is like, then you're not living in the present moment. That's one of the things. Another thing with like predictions these days is like the frequency of the planet is higher. So it's like when you make a prediction on something like for the future, it's contingent on like the current vibration. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, let's say I make a prediction for someone and I'm like, you're gonna do this. Well, the next day that person can make like a huge shift in their life, you know, and that can change their whole timeline. So there's that aspect of it as well. And a lot of people are healing because we're going into the higher vibrations, and like Also, another thing in terms of like the world timelines, like the timelines keep like moving. Do you know what I mean? So there's that aspect of it. And then another reason is like sometimes I personally don't want to speak things into existence if I pick up on it, because it's like if I speak it and then now there's other people that are like, oh my gosh, this is gonna happen and this is gonna happen and this is gonna happen, they're gonna make it happen. Do you know what I mean? So there's this. So it's this. So that's another reason with the prediction. So even when you guys are watching predictive videos like about the world and world events, try not to, because it's like sometimes you're feeding into those timelines. I hope that makes sense, okay? Because it's like the future is not really created yet in a way. That's kind of how I see it. So it's like sometimes certain things are fed to the public for that reason, to create the outcome that certain people want. I really, really hope that that makes sense. I'm kind of speaking between the lines. So it's this in terms of prediction. And another thing too, like also with like predictions, like when you're like looking to see like what's gonna happen, like sometimes I find that people want to know the future because they're like gonna try to control it or like mentally prepare themselves for it. But then it's like, again, it's taking away from the present moment. So there's this aspect of it as well, okay? So that's the whole thing with predictions. It's different like back in the day when the earth plane was more dense. Do you know what I mean? And like the collective consciousness was more like flat. It was easier to hook into things because it's like there wasn't as much like scattered energy, you know what I mean? But these days, energetically, what's happening is there's a lot of higher vibrations. So because the vibrations are super, super high, people are like changing at like accelerated rates. So it's like, it's difficult to hook into certain things because it's like for this reason, okay? It's like happening fast. I can't explain it any other way. Just like psychically, like the way that I always see it is like, I don't know if you guys know science. I don't know. It's interesting. I get a lot of scientific visions. I must have been a scientist in a past life or something. But it's like when a product or like when an item is like a solid, right? The particles are closer together, okay? And then when it's like gas or whatever, it's like more far apart, right? So psychically, the way that I always see it is like when the vibration of the planet is dense, aka the people are dense, right? So like more unhealed, more trauma and so on and so forth, the particles are closer together, okay? That's just how I psychically see it. So other times when it's like, you know, we're going in the higher vibrations, again, it goes into like the spread out particle energy. So things are moving faster. So I don't know, I hope that makes sense. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You have Lilith, Venus, and South Node in the 8th house in Pisces. You said, are you blessed or cursed? I'm dead. That's hilarious. Okay, 8th house. Well, that's intense because that's a lot of crown town activities. Do you know what I mean? Like out of body, being in your crown. And then the 8th house is just intense overall because it's going to be like, again, the psychic realm. So you're in the psychic realms. You're in the creative realms, okay? And like, when it's unhealed, the 8th house, you're in like the paranoid energies as well, right? Because it's like you're always like trying to kind of mentally prepare yourself for something that might not necessarily even happen. So when you heal, when you come out of the lower chakras and the lower chakra wounds, you go into the psychic realms is really what it is. So it's all about managing and learning how to manage your psychic gifts and abilities and learning how to operate on this plane, right? Which is very Virgo-like. So you're opposite to the plane is what that is. So you might want to spend, like you might spend more time trying to leave your body or be out of your body, but you're actually meant to be grounding within your body, okay? And taking the Piscean energy and applying it in this physical reality, okay? So like taking your spiritual knowledge, your ideas, and all these types of things and actually applying it in this physical plane, okay? Hey everyone, that's joining. How are you guys doing? Oh, that's a good question. You said you understand your mother or your moon is your mother, your sun is your father. Both of your parents have passed. How would that show in a birth chart? You could look at transits. You could look at transits. It could be maybe like an 8th house transit that took place, or maybe like Pluto transiting, let's say your 4th house or something of that sort, or maybe like Pluto in combination with like Uranus if it was like unexpected. So you'd have to look at the transits. You said, what is my take of Saturn and Jupiter in the 1st house? And then you said you're a Virgo rising. So Saturn in the 1st house gives you the undertone of having a Capricorn rising. If you look at the older rulerships, it'll give you the undertone of having an Aquarius rising. Jupiter in the 1st house gives you the undertone of having a Sag rising, and the older rulership, it's going to be Pisces rising. So you take on some of those traits in terms of your overall persona. Now that you have those 2 1st house placements, part of your life purpose in this lifetime is to figure out who you are, okay? When you guys have an abundance of 1st house energy, usually like 2 or more, okay? Sometimes 3, but it's fine. Like 2 or more placements, I would say, right? Because it's more than 1. Usually you're here to figure out who you are in this lifetime. Virgo rising, so it's like the direction you're heading in and like kind of what you're doing here, or like part of your path is to help people and be of service. A lot of the time Virgo risings was the challenge with them. If you have Virgo rising and your 12th house is in Leo, a lot of the time the challenge here for these people is in a past life you could have been royalty, you could have been in the higher echelons of society, so you carry that energy within you, but then you come through with a Virgo rising in this lifetime where it's like you're kind of like an everyday type of person. So it's like there could be this expectation where it's like, again, you kind of expect people to treat you like royalty, but you're like taking on more of like the everyday experience because it's like you're of service to like the everyday people. I really, really hope that makes sense. So Saturn and Jupiter in that first house is going to kind of help you be a good business person even, okay? Also Saturn in the first house. You could be intimidating to people or like threatening energetically. Like people might think you're a manager, for example, or like you're at a store. They might ask you like where something is, for example, like things like this, okay? They might think that you work there or like that you're the manager. Like it's an authoritative type of vibe is really, really what that is. You said, oh, you're welcome. You said you love that I don't do predictive as exactly as it can turn self-fulfilling. Can I talk about inner alchemy? Something Scorpio does. Absolutely. That's what Scorpio does. Scorpio is here to transmute, first of all, their own stuff. Yes, for the family line as well. And then for other people as well. Okay. Oh, there it is. You said Pluto was in the 8th house. Okay, that makes sense for the transit. So yes, Scorpio people, like you can look at it as like, and it's interesting because sometimes you don't even have to do anything. Sometimes it's just your energy that's bringing other people's things to the surface. That's why usually people either love you or they don't like you. There isn't really an in-between if you have heavy Scorpio energy within. And also Scorpio deals with sexual energy as well, okay? Which is a whole other conversation of alchemy on its own, okay? And it's also like the union of like the masculine and feminine energy within. So it's this. So you're kind of like balancing these energies within, you're working on yourself. And then when you kind of get out of like that lower version of Scorpio, you get into the higher version where it's like now you're of service in a way to other people, okay? Because you've overcome this and you can now help them also overcome and transmute. Hey everyone, I'm just gonna go back up. You're welcome, I'm glad that resonated. Sometimes I bounce back and forth when more of you guys come in the chat. I go up and down, but I'm gonna go back up now to see where I was at earlier. What are my thoughts? You said he seems to be a big liar. I'm curious. Okay. Up here you said, how about an Aquarius with a Scorpio moon? His Scorpio moon is conjunct Saturn and Pluto in the 7th house. He also has Venus and Mars and Pisces in the 12th. And you said including his Aquarius sun and ascendant in Pisces. And then after that, that's when you said he seems to be a big liar. Okay. That's the shadow of Scorpio, which is so interesting because Scorpios hate liars, but then they can also be liars when they're in the shadow. Do you know what I mean? Because they're hiding aspects of themselves. So if you're feeling like this person is a liar, that means this person is not integrated. That's the whole thing. So someone feels the need to lie because they're not integrated within themselves. And it's interesting because with that Aquarius energy that's taking place in there, that person is actually meant to master like their authenticity in this lifetime and being who they are. Do you know what I mean? So usually like when someone is lying is because there's a few different reasons for it. Sometimes it's connected to shame. Sometimes they just like want to be living a double life. But even if they're living a double life, it's usually connected to shame or just like not being accepted when they were younger, in the sense where it's like, again, they felt the need to go into this like double life energy, or they feel like, you know, part of them is not going to be accepted, or again, it's like they want to have their cake and eat it too. So it's like there's all this fragmentation energy. So if you're sensing that this person is a liar, probably best to just not deal, okay, with this person at all, because they're fragmented is really, really what that is, which is interesting because that person is exactly meant to transmute that in this lifetime. And it's interesting also because they have Pluto in their 7th house, and that's in their relationships as well. So that person can also have a lot of secret relationships too. So that's that Scorpio energy in the shadow, unfortunately, because it's feminine energy. It's like, I get it sometimes where it's like, you know, they might not want to be fully exposed, but like at the same time, you know, it's like a, what's the word? Double standard sometimes with that energy, because it's like they want everyone to tell them everything that they think, right? But they're not going to tell everything. And like relationships don't work like that, unfortunately. Let's see what else you guys think in here. Can I talk further on my research on free will and breaking out of the code? Yes, astrology is so accurate, and yet breaking and yet is breaking out of also playing into the code, i.e. North Node? Oh, that's a very interesting question. So the way that I see it is like, while we're here on this earth plane, still in the third dimension, there's like the energetic overlay around the earth is really what that is. So the more that people learn about this and that they transmute their energies, then you won't be controlled by it anymore. And sometimes you have to not engage with the energy. So for example, okay, let's say you have Scorpio in your 7th house, or even Pluto in the 7th. We were just talking about that as well. Or maybe even if you're Scorpio Venus, you're always, because it's part of your code, right? You're always going to attract shady people. Do you know what I mean? Or just like, you know, people who are trying to hide something, or like these types of individuals. Now, it's not just that type of person you're going to attract, but you're always going to attract that person. So it's interesting because when I was more like in the new age, before I got super into astrology, because usually when you're going through an awakening, you kind of go through all the layers, right? So a lot of new age concepts are like 4th dimensional, okay, beliefs. So it's like half truths, kind of like there's a little bit of truth, but they're not fully, right? But then you learn about astrology and you actually see that everything is coded down here, which is like the next level or layer, I guess, of awakening, I guess you can say. So the thing is, within the new age, they're going to tell you and they're going to be like, you're doing something to attract these people into your life. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, when you learn about astrology, it's like, no, that is just the energy that's in your natal chart. Like, you can have the awareness and you can have as much awareness as possible. Or like, even let's say with these energies that I just mentioned, like the Scorpio 7th house or Pluto in the 7th, or even Scorpio Venus, you could attract a lot of people who want to kind of like infringe on your boundaries or push through your boundaries. And it's like, there's nothing that you can do to work on yourself other than have the awareness that this is the type of person that's always going to be around. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes it's like little trips, like tricks. It's interesting that I said trips, but in little tricks and traps, okay, is really, really what that is. Because it's like, people get sent to you sometimes as a distraction as well, you know? And it's like, again, because it's in your energetic field. So it's like, I think you just have to have the awareness. I don't think it's something that people are doing. That's what the new age teaches. It's like, oh, you have an unconscious belief. And like, that's true to a certain extent. And yes, you want to heal, and yes, you want to work on yourself. But it's like, at what point is the healing done? Do you know what I mean? Because like, if we sit here, we can dissect things forever, you know? So it's like, yes, that's true to a certain extent, but eventually you just have to disengage. So I think that's part of quote unquote breaking out of this energy, is like disengaging also with it. So that's another reason why I don't do predictive readings, because it's like, if you're doing predictive readings, you're feeding into it, is really, really what that is. You want to figure out a way to learn the energy, let's say in your chart, because it's the energy that got imprinted on you, okay, when you entered this realm. So you want to learn it so you can see what are the shadows, what are the things like this, like what are these like little tricks that are going to be sent to you here and there, like the repetitive character, the repetitive like person. And how can you not engage with it anymore? The vision that I get always when I'm talking about that is, I don't know if you guys ever watched the movie A Beautiful Mind, okay? So in the movie, he's schizophrenic, okay? So he's schizophrenic and he sees like these characters all the time, right? And it's like, he goes through his whole like engaging with them phase. And then toward the end of the movie, he like learns to manage this within himself. And like the movie is showing you that those people are still there, but he's not engaging with them anymore. So they're not engaging with him anymore either, okay? So I hope that makes sense. So it's kind of like, this is the vibe, right? So sometimes there's certain things in your natal chart, certain people, certain characters, that it's kind of like a repetitive loop for almost, okay? So you have to not feed into it, is really, really. Oh my gosh, I just saw that the thing was muted again. This time, hopefully less. So interesting. It's literally always only on this phone. Next time, I'm just gonna continue using the other one from now on. Okay, let's see what else are you guys saying in here. You said, hi, how are you doing? You said, what is Saturn going retrograde next week mean? You got Saturn in the 2nd house, Pisces. You're in your Saturn return currently. Maybe a lot of karmic things are going to be coming to the surface for people with Saturn going retrograde. For people who have Saturn retrograde in their natal chart, these individuals are already used to the energy, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. You may ask, yes, you may ask. Then you said, what is the interpretation behind a 5th house stellium, Uranus, Neptune, and Saturn? So you're basically here to master the inner child. So it could either be within yourself or it could be through your own children, especially because you have Saturn in the 5th. Sometimes these people have children young because you're healing the inner child within, like, through your children, or you might have kids later, okay, because you're kind of healing the inner child first and then you have kids, or you might not have kids at all with Saturn in the 5th house, okay? So that's that. So you're kind of here to be creative is basically what that is. Uranus is going to be unique creativity. So you might be like quirky, or you might have like unique ideas, or you might be like, you know, like let's say you're a comedian, you might have like a very unique comedy style, for example. So it's this, okay? And then Neptune is going to be blurring this for you. So it's like you could spend a lot of time dreaming about it. Oh my gosh, when I'm on a stage. Oh, when I'm a comedian. Oh, when I'm doing improv. Oh, when I'm doing this, you know? So you want to see how you can ground those visions into this physical reality. Okay, I'm just going back up. You're welcome. Yeah, exactly. Usually that's been my thing too, Edward, because you were like, you believe it was not meant to hear. I think that as well. When it like shuts off, I'm like, whatever, I'm not even gonna bother going into like the whole explanation again. Let's see what else are you guys saying in here. You said you believe in reincarnation. Is there a way to find clues through synastry charts, connections with loved ones, past, now, and present? Yeah, you can see it within like 12th house types of things or situations. Like that can be a past life connection. But like everything I find is still karmic clearance in one way, shape, or form on this earth plane. I see it that way. So it can be positive or it can be negative. I feel like when people hear karma, they think it's negative, you know, because a lot of time people are like, oh, I hope that person gets their karma, or karma's gonna get you. But sometimes karma is a balancing of energies. You know what I mean? Maybe in a past life, you know, you bought someone a house. In this lifetime, it might not be that person, but you get a house or you get an inheritance or something of that sort because it's like you did that in a past life. It's a balancing. It's a balancing of energies, and it's not always like through the same people. You know, sometimes you think that it's like this person did that, so they come through, and then that person does that. I don't think it's always like that. You know, where it's like the same two people. Not always. Sometimes you'll see that. Like sometimes people are kind of traveling together, especially within families. I find a lot of the time certain family soul groups are incarnating together is really, really what that is. But yes, up until this point, and it's interesting. Okay, I'm not going to take you guys because that's going to take you guys too much into the crown in terms of just like how there's so many people right now in the world, or like people are talking about how there's so many people in the world, and that just like a lot of duplication of just like a lot of unprocessed trauma and karma. I'm just going to leave it at that. That's going to have to be a whole different conversation of its own for a different day. You said you're a Gemini ascendant, Saturn retrograde in the 2nd house. So Saturn retrograde is an absence of a father figure early on in life. In Libra, Mars, Moon, Mercury, and Sagittarius, Capricorn, Venus, Aquarius, Jupiter, and Aries. Okay, that is a lot going on in there. What would you like to know about that? Okay, you guys want to know about Saturn retrograde. So Saturn retrograde is usually an absence of a father figure early on in life. So it can be mental, emotional, or physical absence. In turn, you now have an absence of, let's say, boundaries or the masculine energy within. And it could also be just like issues with authority and the sway, where it's like authoritative figures maybe don't respect your boundaries. So when I say authority, it could be like your teachers, it could be your managers, like anyone who is in that authoritative position above you. And it can also be like you're learning to master your own internal masculine energy within. Okay, that's Saturn retrograde. It's that absence, right? Because it's like, okay, it's the father figure, yes, but then in turn, if it's not the father, dominant masculine role in your life, and then in turn, it's your own inner masculine energy is really, really what that is. You said you hate Neptune in the 7th. How can you break those rose-colored glasses? Yeah. Okay, when you have Neptune in the 7th, so Neptune in the 7th, Neptune in the 5th, Pisces in the 7th, Pisces in the 5th, Venus in Pisces, Venus in the 12th house, Venus-Neptune aspects, okay? All of these people, basically, okay, you see people through that rose-colored lens, yes. So some ways to do this is to see are people's actions aligning with their words, for example, okay? Because sometimes it's like you'll find excuses for people, or it's like because you're also a little bit more intuitive, you'll be like, oh, I get where they're coming from, or they couldn't do it because of this, or like they have this unhealed wound, so they couldn't do it because of this, or they're acting because of this unhealed wound. It doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? If they are pulling out your energy, draining you, or anything of this sort, it's not a healthy dynamic, right? And then learning about healthy dynamics, yes. And then also not idealizing people is going to be helpful, and not watching tarot readings, okay? So these people in this category, you're always going to watch readings. You could get sucked into those readings, and there's so many of them online where they're always like, this person says this, and this person feels this, and you can waste so much time. But you know what's interesting? What I've been thinking about these people actually because I had that romantic obsession video, something that I've been thinking about this group of people, okay? So anyone who has, again, Neptune in the 7th, Neptune in the 5th, Pisces in the 7th, Pisces in the 5th, okay? Venus in Pisces, Venus in the 12th, Venus Neptune aspects. Anyone who has this, or anyone who kind of goes into this like obsession or like romanticization of relationships. I was thinking, and I was like, sometimes, you know, if you look at it in a positive sense, sometimes you going into this romanticization of like maybe a person or a relationship, or in general of relationships, it's like sometimes it's protecting you. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you're focused on that, and it's like, because you're focused on that, it's protecting you maybe from like other people like that are actually in the physical reality that could be like maybe toxic, for example. So you can kind of look at it in that positive sense as well. You said your friend is Cancer ascendant, Moon in the 1st house, Saturn exalted in the 4th house, Jupiter in the 5th house, Sun in the 7th house, Venus and Mars in the 8th house, Rahu in the 12th house. You said remedy for OCD. Okay, I'm not a psychologist, but if you look at OCD, it's usually like a controlling, right? You're trying to control your environment. So you'd have to dig deep and be like, okay, at what point in my life did I feel like things were out of control is really what it is. Sometimes if it's like, it depends what kind of OCD it is. Again, I'm not a psychologist, but it's like, sometimes it's connected to fear too. So sometimes maybe like when it's usually the original 2 caregivers, but whoever took on this role when you were younger, like they could have instilled fear in you to like have this item on you all the time. So you always have to like check for it, right? So it's like, if you can free yourself from that, and again, I'm not a psychologist, right? Just observations, then you might be able to overcome that, okay? So you'd have to do exploration within the self. Oh, nice. You said visiting Jupiter line later this week. How can you best work with the energy? Anything to do with abundance. Maybe if you're launching a project, you could launch it in that area. Or you could also, I mean, I'm not going to take you too much into like the hedonistic behavior. But yes, let's say you're launching a project, or like, I don't know how long you're staying there. Let's say you're looking for a job or like a business connection. Like that could be like a positive, I guess, like manifestation of it. Venus in the 12th house is past life enemies. Yes. Does that mean you have to really test your lovers? Absolutely. It's past life enemies coming through as lovers. Also like past life enemies coming through as friends. So that's that rose colored lens again, okay, coming through. So like these people, let's say you're someone who like is getting into like a business venture with a person, for example, with that energy, you might not see them clearly, for example. So you'll see these people a lot of the time. Even 12th house people, for example, could also spend a lot of time going to psychics, because like, again, you know, there's something here where it's like you might not fully trust yourself within these situations. So again, that could be a positive thing or a shadow thing. Like if you're doing it too much, if it's at the point of addiction, then it's just like, it's an addiction, you know what I mean? But it's like if you're consulting with a psychic, because you might kind of be like, well, I see people through a rose color lens, let me get like a second psychic opinion. Well, at that point in time, like that person could help you see, for example, something that you don't see within that person. Although what I will say for like 12th house energy people, all these types of energies, you know, what tends to happen is you'll still see what you want to see. Do you know what I mean? So that's a little bit of a struggle with the energy, because like you can really end up in interesting situations, because like 12th house people can like have their boundaries also invaded as well, or just like taken advantage of. So just something to keep in mind. I have Moon conjunct Venus in Synastry video. Yes, I have Moon conjunct Venus. That's just like a very Venusian dynamic. Like you guys are going to be on the same page in terms of like things that you like to do, maybe places you like to go, like museums, like foods you guys like to eat. Yes. Mars square Mars could be like a battle of the egos, and then Mars square Saturn, any sort of Saturnian like synastry could be like basically like a replica of like your parents within that person, okay? Or maybe you're the parents within for the other person, okay? So that's Saturn. It could be tricky. It's karmic in this way. You might see certain like even like restrictions this person could bring upon you, because it's Mars square Saturn. It could be in your sexuality as well. For example, Mars square Saturn, and then Mars square Mars can also be like ego battles. You know what I mean? Like one-upping each other. It could be this. You said, can astrology tell you what year you will get married and what you meet your partner in a current year? Because I see a lot of videos and you wonder if it's accurate or not. I mean, it could. Astrology could tell you a lot of things. You'd have to really look at everything. You'd have to go to someone who is like specialized in that, I would say. And like, you'd have to look at a lot of things in your natal chart, because it's also transits and all these types of things. So it could. But sometimes you have several people that you could meet too. So Mars in the 10th house for Libra ascendant. What I will say for you is try to get out of people pleasing, because the Mars in the 10th wants to be like a boss. Do you know what I mean? So after you overcome people pleasing and wanting to make everyone happy, and like that could even like play out into like that double life energy, for example, where it's like you're doing one thing, like in terms of, because it's 10th house, it's career, maybe you're doing one thing to like please your family, but then you're trying to have like a side hustle, but it's like maybe the side hustle isn't taking off because you're doing this, and it's like the energy behind it could be like people pleasing energy, but the people pleasing energy is like with the family, maybe, for example. If it's not the family, then it's society and so on and so forth. So it's like when you overcome that, you'll go into Mars in the 10th, for example, and it's like the Mars in the 10th house is like full force, like trying to get to the top, you know, getting those gains, getting the money, trying to be a CEO, trying to be a manager, a boss, like these types of things, okay? But Libra ascendant like struggles with like people pleasing. But when you overcome this, you're very friendly, for example, with the Libra ascendant, attractive, right? So people want to work with you. You could be good at negotiations, right? But it's just like that people pleasing aspect that you might have to overcome. Yes, I have a retrograde video. I have a retrograde video for retrograde planets on here. I think it's under my miscellaneous playlist. That might be one of the videos I share this week, okay? So you guys can watch that, because it's like you have the retrograde planet, but also the house that it's retrograde in is going to be even more information. The video that I have is just the retrograde planet, but it's like usually it's a lesson that you're relearning, you're redoing it. To me, retrograde kind of feels like you've done it so many times that you're like over it. You're like, oh my gosh, I have to do it again. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to do it again. Like, I don't want to do it. You know, that's kind of how retrograde feels to me. So it's this. So like when the world is retrograde or like the transit is retrograde, it kind of goes with your energy because you're used to it already. But otherwise, it kind of feels like an uphill battle. So one of you guys also in here asked about like Jupiter retrograde. That could be around money, right? And finances. You might struggle in this area because it's like, you know, you're relearning the lessons around making money, for example, when you have Jupiter retrograde. And it's like there could be resistance within the self too. If you guys want your own natal chart reading, progress natal chart reading, you guys can find that on my website in the description box below. An email window should pop up, and then you guys can send me an email and we'll go from there if you guys want to learn more about your natal charts. It's a video that I sent you guys, and I'll let you guys know what the turnaround time is when you send me the email. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You guys are so awesome. Water energy is difficult. Yes, water energy is absolutely difficult because this earth plane does not value feminine energy, right? Which is water energy. So when you're a watery person, you really have to work on your masculine energy, okay? So it's like you're gonna have to work on discipline. You're gonna have to work on containing the energy. You're basically going to have to work on perseverance, being a go-getter, putting in your hard work and effort towards something. And then you might feel tired, right? Because you're going against your natural energy. Because when you have water energy, it's all about going with the flow. It's really, really what that is, you know? And this earth plane is not about flow. At least if you're trying to like create something or succeed at something, for example, right? Because you're also going to be more creative when you're a watery person. You're going to be more psychic. You're going to be more intuitive. So yes, absolutely, it's a challenge, but like nothing is impossible. This is the whole thing here. It's like all about learning about how to manage your energy is really, really what that is. Learning the earth plane and the energy of the plane and how to fit into that with your energy is basically what that is. So it's this. You have an 11th house stellium. Nice. So you're super ahead of your time. And then you said Aries midheaven, also Gemini stellium and Leo rising. Coming to fame on social media platform. Mars, Virgo, any advice? Yes, social media is definitely going to help you with the 11th house, like the internet. You can have a business online with that. What do I think about Chiron, Venus, conjunct industry? It could be a lot of you trying to heal that person. Whoever's Chiron is going to be trying to heal the other person. It can turn into like a wounded, like a savior complex type of situation, okay, with the Chiron Venus. But it could also be a very healing dynamic as long as you're not going into that role, okay, whoever Chiron is in the situation. Sometimes the energies are interchangeable. Like sometimes the energy is just activated between two people. So it could be one of the people, but it could also be the other person, if that makes sense, because like the energy is there. And like we're all very like, what's the word? Clairsentient, I guess, in that way, where it's like you can merge to the other person and then pick up on their energy as well. You said, what do I think about Vedic astrology? You just want to pick my brain. I mean, I've looked at Vedic astrology for myself in terms of my natal chart. Some things have resonated, but it hasn't resonated to the point where I was like, okay, this is the type of astrology that I want to be doing other people's readings for in terms of Vedic astrology. I find that Vedic astrology has a huge focus on relationships and marriage, because that's what they used to use back in the day for arranged marriages. So if you want to learn more about that, I think it's very good for that. I know they have a lot of different charts, which is awesome. It's going to be very, very detailed as well. So yes, that's my opinion on Vedic astrology. I also think like it depends what you want to use the astrology for, because if you guys are going to be going actually into predictive astrology, you then actually want to look and see which one of these systems are going to resonate most with basically what's happening in the world, right? But the thing is also, if you're doing predictive astrology, you're going to be looking at like aspects and like things that took place like last time, certain placements, right, took place, or certain patterns were taking place. That's kind of how like astrologers, like when they're looking at like world predictions and so on and so forth, they look in history, right? They're like, okay, when Uranus was squaring Pluto, this is what took place, for example, right? But it's like whether you're looking in tropical Placidus or if you're looking in Vedic, right? It's like the aspect is still there. Do you know what I mean? It's just a sign that's different. Now you have people that say like, oh, Vedic is like more legit because it's like the actual constellations. I'm not sure, right? Because for me and my natal charts and like even just like the happenings in terms of like even transits, like Placidus tropical has resonated the most. So that's what I do my readings in. So you said everyone's got to do their research deep to find his. Most people know not whole history. Yes, exactly. That's the thing. So here's the thing, astrology's been around for so long. There's that aspect of it. And I also do believe that everything is given to us for a reason. Do you know what I mean? So I do feel like both astrologies and systems exist for a reason. So it's kind of like, what are you going to be using what system for? So there's that aspect of it as well. You said, what can I say are suitable careers for Capricorn, 8th house stellium? Yes. I can see you being a very good business person. Like I can see you being very intuitive when it comes to like markets and like foreshadowing, you know, like those companies where they have like the people who like make those like business plans. I can see that for you. So anything to do with like using your intuition, but in like a Capricorn type of way, basically. So it could be like anything to do with like a business, basically. Career path. Okay, when I look for career in people's charts, I look at the stelliums in their charts to see if they have an abundance of certain energies. I also look at the 10th house. You can look at the North Node sometimes. It's a combination, basically, of things. Okay, Vivi Valor, you said, hey, how are you? Then you said, what do I think about having Scorpio rising with Mars, Moon, and Pluto in Scorpio in the first house? How do you learn emotional self-regulation? You feel like you're not alive if you're not addicted. Oh, very interesting. Yeah, that's that Scorpio energy. So if you're struggling with any type of addiction, this is for anybody, and I'm not a psychologist, always my disclaimer. If you're struggling with an addiction, you're basically escaping an emotion, right? So it's some sort of negative emotion that you have to get to the bottom of, like, what is that negative emotion? So having that Scorpio energy taking place in there could be something traumatic that took place that like you're trying to energetically mask. So is it a feeling of loneliness? Is it a feeling of abandonment? Is it a fear of abandonment? Usually like with Scorpio energy, it could be this, anything of this sort, anything in the sacral chakra. Maybe it's like not being fully able to express your emotions, or like not being in tune with your emotions. So then you're trying to mask, right? So anytime people go into addiction, there's usually something that they're trying to either mask, escape from, or there's like a trauma there that's not resolved, right? Because it's in the sacral chakra, okay? So that's kind of how I have connected the energy. Sometimes people, for example, like maybe this is more 12th house people or like Neptunian aspects, but sometimes what happens with people is like they're gonna start something because they're bored, and then it turns into an addiction because it's creating also a level of comfort as well. And it's like anytime we do anything repetitive, it's like now creating a level of comfort. So for example, maybe you didn't have like a level of stability when you were growing up, and now you created a stability in certain, you know, a certain motion that you're doing. It depends like what the addiction is as well. You know what I mean? So it's like, let's say someone who smokes like cigarettes, for example, or maybe like vapes these days, like for example, like that's bringing them comfort, or maybe it's like soothing some form of anxiety, but it's like through that action of doing it all the time, you've now created a comfort and a form of stability in that thing. I hope that makes sense. So it's like a lot of the time, because like Scorpio is addictive and obsessive, yes, like yes, you want to get to the root of the emotion, but you also like want to see if you can replace these like maybe even bad habits with something that's more positive. Do you know what I mean? So it's like maybe it's going to be exercising, or maybe it's going to be running, or whatever it is, but it's like you still want to get to the root of it because it's like a behavior. Do you know what I mean? It's like an addictive pattern or behavior that you have. You said, yes, you created your whole personality based on trauma from childhood. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Oh, you have Scorpio moon as well. You said it's probably loneliness. Yes, yes. Sometimes Scorpio moon can struggle with just like not having someone to hold space for their emotions as well, is really, really what that is. So again, it's going to have to be something that you resolve within yourself, basically like learning the emotions, learning the feelings, and like again, self-regulating. Because also another thing that can happen sometimes for Scorpio moons is like, sometimes like if they are, let's say, upset or going through something, because most people, like let's say the other person is not a Scorpio moon, like let's say it's like, I don't know, like a Gemini moon or like even a Libra moon, right? Let's say you go to that person and like, let's say you express and you're like, okay, this is what's happening, because they don't have the depth, they don't have that ability to like go deep, you know, they might kind of just like give you some sort of response and it's not validating then your emotions, and that could trigger you into like a downward spiral as well, because like the emotions aren't being validated. So yes, you're gonna have to figure that out within yourself. Maybe like art is gonna help you, or creativity or something of the sort, where it's like you get to release, or even writing, you know, it could help you as well. So yay, I'm glad that that resonated. Thank you. I'm doing Western tropical, so the tropical Placidus system. It is what I do my natal chart readings in. If you guys want your own readings, you can always send me an email. Venus in the 10th, you can make a lot of money. That's the wealth placement. You can also date people who have a lot of money with that energy in there as well, with Venus in the 10th house. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna sign off now. Thank you so much for being here, for your questions, for your likes, your shares, and subscribes. I hope you all